Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian Farmer. It's Trevor Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Wednesday, April 19th. So we are almost, getting through the majority of April at this point, and the the indices continue to be very the price action continues to be very tight, a little bit dull. We'll go over that in just a second. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Once again, even though that the price action, S&P was essentially flat for the day, recovered a bit from the lows of the session. Today was one of those days where the market opened up lower, but bounced, quite opposite of the day before, where the market opened up on the highs and sold off in the first hour or two. So, that's kind of what has been taking place right now, is that the range of the price action just continues to be very narrow. But the market doesn't want to, right now the market doesn't want to break out, and it doesn't want to break down either. So, if you're if you're coming in every day and just basically fading moves, fading an up move, or buying the dip a little bit on the days where we open up, that seems to be, for now, what is working. Now, that of course won't always work, and generally not the best strategy over time, but for now, that seems to be working quite well. But we've faced this before, but this time seems like it's just the range is very, very tight. Like we saw this a bit in here too, where the market was just kind of was very dull in here and then finally bounced. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of all over the place. And, you can't, when the market does this, you can't chase. If you're seeing like, oh, geez, this name's about to break high, break out or break higher, it gets tough because there are some names that are doing that. They're just very few and far between. Now, the other thing to observe too is that you are getting sector separation. There are different groups that are both acting a little bit weak, right? And there are groups that are acting, kind of strong. So you are getting trading ranges for, or something to trade, in different sectors. You look at the banks today; they were up. The regional bank ETF was up almost 4%. But that's tough. I mean, it's tough to kind of go into the banks, with heavy risk, playing one, I get, but that's a tough trade right now, right? And a couple of them have been acting pretty well the last couple of days. So that's interesting. Medical devices, biotech, right? Really strong on the back of some positive earnings, and just really interesting to see what the biotechs are doing, and have been doing. And, who knows, that could be something that continues, right? We've talked about, or at least I talk about it in a lot of these videos, that, when we're going sideways like this, or basically so far in 2023, we've seen certain groups get hot for a bit, and then they cool, and there's a rotation and so forth. So, right now, and I've been saying this for probably about a week and a half, it's the medical devices, and it's some medical equipment names, and some biotech. So here's what the S&P looks like. Again, it's still staying above the 5-period moving average. Again, it kind of reminds me of the phrase that I've heard on Wall Street quite a bit, is that don't short a dull market. Even though it's pretty boring in terms of the indices, it doesn't really make sense to kind of go crazy trying to, don't short a dull market, right? That's how the saying goes. All right. 4160, right? I mean, this is the sideways range all week long, rejected at the highs, bought on the lows. And we're basically right back to this version point of control from last week. That was, the high on that. I think that was the high on Wednesday morning. So, nowheresville, right? Qs, it's the same thing, even to a greater extent, right? The Qs finished just barely red for the session, but I mean, again, it's the same story here. Not much movement since the end of March, back and forth all over the place, right? IWM, we'll go back to this one. I mean, this is also getting really interesting. This has also got rejected on the first big move outside of valuary. So, the price action just does not want to go too far. And I don't know if that, is specifically because of we don't really have a great sense of what the Fed is doing. It looks like right now, they're going to be raising interest rates by 25 basis points come May 3rd, right? And then, we'll have to see if they do any more than that. It's starting to kind of like this is starting to shift a little bit. We've talked about this a few times, that I don't know why this market keeps implying rate cuts when you go like further out to the end of the year. And then only, the market ends up being disappointed by this once Powell comes on and says that we're not cutting interest rates. So again, I don't know how this keeps developing. We've mentioned this now, since this flipped. And it's starting to kind of move back a little bit. So the market may be getting more accustomed to that. So being that today was kind of, and Tesla reported after the close, I'll tell you, if this doesn't come back in the after earnings, right? Stock's sitting at 174 right now. Right. It does, Tesla has not been acting well, first of all. But if this breaks, right, and if it doesn't stay above this, 179.50 level, then I think you can maybe look for a move down to 157, right? They probably need to, talk about, why they're cutting prices so much, like what their strategy is with that. But the other thing with Tesla, it just doesn't, we don't have any, it just doesn't seem like they're coming out with anything that new. We've heard about the Cybertruck for a while. So, when you have a company, just bring up Tesla. I haven't looked, I don't know what the valuation here is. Let's see just what the PE is. It's a 52. Yeah, sure. It's expensive versus the overall market. So when you don't have anything new coming out, when you don't have any new products or, some new development, right, the name begins to kind of revert to, for valuation purposes, it begins to kind of break down if you don't have a new growth catalyst. So I'm interested to hear what they say on the earnings call. And if not, if you are looking for a short in this market, it is what it is. Tesla never got above on this, move up from the lows, which everybody got really excited about. I get it. It's a big move from the lows. It never got above the 200-day moving average, right? One other name that I'm watching, which seems to be holding in there, is NVIDIA, and I would keep this on your radar. If it breaks 280, again, my ultimate price target where I think this thing could go is up to 300. So if it breaks 280, I think it's on the way up there. All right, so that was pretty strong today in a weak market, right? Also, PI was another name. Sticking with the semis for a minute, this team was kind of strong towards the end of the day too. Note this team is going to have earnings next week. Again, we're right in the heart of earnings season too, so that could also be why there's some indecision in this marketplace right now. Is because of that. DKNY acted really well today. Or DKNG, DraftKings continuing to move higher here. Ultimately, I'm looking for 22.28. I did add a trade today on a little bit of the dip today, as we kind of came within about, a little bit halfway into yesterday's candle. So this worked out well for me today, and I'm ultimately, like I said, looking for 22.28. Again, what attracts me to this name is that it's looking good on multiple time frames, right? Here's your breakout of value on the weekly chart. All right, and I thought I would spend some minutes here just going over like what's been so what happened with medical devices today. Why was this so strong? Well, first of all, it's been strong. Somebody said to me on Twitter, and again, this is fine. I always welcome all the feedback, but they said, wow, this really got going. Yes, today it was up big, but it's been showing some nice strength now for about 2 weeks, right? So, look at the move, the breakout of the April value area. Again, if you go back to the overall market, right, we can, just so that you haven't lost this view, but it's been pretty stagnant, right, since the beginning of the month, right? But if you look at IHI, right, and biotech too, it's made one hell of a move. So in this group, bring up IHI and the components. just to show you what the movers were, which is always important. Whenever you're looking at an ETF, always have to know what's in the ETF and what the movers are. But ISRG was up almost 11%. Abbott also put in a nice quarter too. DXCM had a big move today. Medtronic also very interesting too. But so where could this be going? Let's go to the weekly chart. It's going to have some resistance at 57.30, but ultimately this is a nice break of the trend line. So yes, it will be interesting to see once it gets here if it can break through. But I love the relative strength. XHE is the medical equipment ETF, which also looks pretty strong, right? Nice looking candle for that as well. Also note above the 200-day moving average. I thought I would show a couple of the other biotech charts. Again, like more and more this biotech move to the downside looks like a false breakdown. Now it's at the 200-day moving average. Notice it kind of clipped that today without making it over. But longer term, maybe this is the start of, again, when I say longer term, it's not tomorrow, but maybe it's the start of a bigger move. Like for this year, it could spend, like the indices, it could spend the whole year inside its value area. Still, even so, that would be a nice gain because the top of value is all the way up at 93. All right. So that's biotech. And then of course that, this is equally weighted biotech where the small names get the same weight as the larger ones. If you want to look to see what the bigger biotech ETF is doing, this one's market cap weighted IBB. Watch this 134.62 level. Okay. So very interesting. Here's XLV. Also did not make it through the top of value last week, kind of struggling with that. One group within the healthcare ETF really getting hit pretty hard is the managed care space, right? This group was strong just about 2 weeks ago, not so strong anymore. And look at this is why I have these indicators on my charts. Here was the Virgin point of control in UNH, and completely faded after earnings, right? Not a good move. Humana was another one that came out and took out this VPOC, right? And again, like right now in this market, sometimes these Virgin point of controls, the overhead supply, which is what they're signaling, is like the kiss of death, right? I mean, that's down 3.9% for Humana, right? And that's a move down to that's a $40 move, right, in about a week, just straight up, selling pressure. All right, so I find that interesting. Is there anything else that I want to cover? There's a couple of names that are still acting pretty well. This other name that we've had on our watch list had again, mentioned this was a tougher name, but this MDGL, I think it came, very quickly. Some of these biotech names are taking out their targets, very quickly. This was one hell of a move. It did take out the 295. I mentioned to somebody on Twitter that that's where I thought the stock was going. Maybe 299 was just a little bit short. Was just a little short of that one. This was one. This is the wrong one. Not nice. What was the name that I wrote about earlier? Dice. What's the difference? Look at this name. Again, some of these names you really have to do some digging to see what they do. But I wrote about this on Substack earlier. Make sure, by the way, you're signed up to my Substack page. But nice break of value area, and again, a day where the indices are stagnant. Again, you don't have to fall in love with these names, especially if you don't really know what they do or when they have a drug study out. But give you a really nice trading range for the day, up 7%. Right. There was another name too that I was talking about yesterday. I can't remember it, so I won't bring it up. But there are some trading opportunities, some of which, again, you may not want to own for swing trades, but there are some names moving, and that's our job, right, as traders, to basically find what is moving in a overall. I don't want to say stagnant market, but it's kind of seems like that over the last couple of weeks. So in any event, we'll try to do it again tomorrow. Guys, have a great night. If you're not a member, I hope to see you in the trading room. Sign up.